Daar is nie genoeg kos in Zimbabwe nie en minstens 5,5 miljoen mense gaan slaap elke aand honger. Van president Emmerson Mnangagwa se beloftes van internasionale hulp het daartoe niks gekom nie. Ek praat met die regskenner Doug Coltart. Hy het enkele ure gelede uit Harare gearriveer. Doug, how secure is Mnangagwa in power?
I would say not secure at all, and that is clearly demonstrated by his actions. He comes across as a man who is not confident in his own legitimacy, and therefore uses brute force to try and retain power. But even within the security services, it seems that as the economic situation continues to unravel, that he is perhaps even starting to lose the loyalty even some of those who have been his closest allies.
So in terms of brute force, we know that the security forces shot at protesters in the last few years. We know that you were assaulted in a police station quite recently. But in the military, just talk about the security forces for a moment. So it was the military, of course, that got rid of Robert Mugabe a few years ago, Constantino Chiwenga, who's deputy president at the moment, right? And so there are rumors that Chiwenga has presidential aspirations. And in reaction to this, I imagine, but please correct me if I'm wrong, a feeding scheme was instituted for the armed forces, to make sure that everybody's well fed. And $3.1 billion, is that correct, was budgeted last year for the security forces in a country as impoverished as Zimbabwe. Is this an attempt by Mnangagwa to feather the nest of the armed forces to say, listen, I'll look after you, keep me in power?
So, I mean, this has always been a tactic from Mugabe's era to Mnangagwa.
Keep the soldiers happy.
Keep the soldiers happy, because as we saw from November 2017, that when soldiers are not happy, they do have the power to act, and that's so to some extent as a president who gained power through a military coup. Mnangagwa has always been beholden to the military. His cabinet is packed with generals, and so he has to walk this very tightrope. But this latest initiative with what they call the garrison shops, these subsidized shops for soldiers, which is being funded by a tax on other civil servants, is only serving to create more resentment among the ordinary citizens. And Mnangagwa might find that his biggest threat ultimately emerges from civilian Zimbabweans who feel that enough is enough.
Okay, but you mentioned the economic hardship. Tell us a little bit about that, because he was looking for international funding recently at the IMF, World Bank and others. What answers did he get?
Yeah, I mean, the IMF recently issued a statement that was about as damning as they come from the international organizations, basically saying that Zimbabwe is totally off track on the staff-monitored program. There was an article which came out in the Financial Times saying that the real reason behind the IMF's hard-hitting statement was because they discovered that the central bank had actually been surreptitiously printing money, which would explain the hyperinflation that we are now experiencing.
And the government promised that they wouldn't do that.
They
right?
promised that they wouldn't do that. That was part of the staff monitoring program. They went back on that word. The state came out hitting, saying that wasn't true and denying the allegations. But the fact of the matter is that we are now back into hyperinflation, and there are economic forces at work behind that. There are accusations that the Reserve Bank is dishing out hundreds of thousands of US dollars to Mnangagwa's close associates, and we see it unraveling in the economy.
Explain to us how ordinary Zimbabweans are suffering economically at the moment.
The level of suffering is really unprecedented. People's salaries have been utterly decimated. If we take a civil servant, for example, a teacher who earns less than $100, less than $30 a month, I should say. You know, what is that in rands? But I mean, it's not something that
500 rands
that you can survive on. You could, and so the prices are going through the roof. Fuel queues are kilometers long. It really feels like, you know, as a repeat of what we saw happen in 2008 in Zimbabwe with the complete economic meltdown.
And how is it that there's a food shortage?
So look, it's closely linked to Mnangagwa's flagship program, what they called Command Agriculture, which was a state subsidized agricultural scheme, which was basically simply used as a massive looting opportunity. The Parliament recently revealed that over $3 billion worth of US dollars, which was allocated for command agriculture, is totally unaccounted for. And so all of the state funding, which was meant to be used towards feeding the nation, has just been siphoned off. And there've been other scandals about maize being imported from Tanzania at grossly inflated prices, and obviously someone is taking a massive cut off of that. And so the state just really has, it's through, I mean, to put it bluntly, through sort of brazen looting of the resources that should have been put towards food that leaves us in a situation where people are starving.
How much resistance is there in Zim to this robber regime?
I mean, among the ordinary citizenry, there's a huge amount of disaffection, but because of the level of repression that we have seen, when people have tried to peacefully protest against things, we've seen extremely brutal crackdown in August last year, November last year. You mentioned, you know, even just as a lawyer, trying to do my job and represent people, I've been assaulted twice by the police. So that level of, in that very repressive environment, it is difficult sometimes to see the level of resistance at a surface level. But bubbling beneath the surface is a huge amount of unhappiness, anger, and resistance.
But how is this then resolved, Doug? Because electoral politics hasn't delivered solutions for Zimbabweans at the polls. Neither has a military coup.
Absolutely, and so I think, I mean, for us, I think, you know, we can rule out certainly that a military coup will help anything. That has been proven. I think that elections are important, and there does need to be a strong drive for electoral reform so that we can actually have free and fair elections. But in the current environment and with the current framework that is there, it would be impossible to have free and fair elections, which is why, you know, myself and many others do advocate for peaceful and non-violent methods outside of the formal processes, but through civil resistance and non-violent action to challenge the system and try to push for the type of transformation that we need in order to get to a place where we can have proper electoral democracy.
Doug, thank you and good luck.
Thanks very much.
Na die advertensies maak ons 'n draai by die woordfees. Ek sien julle nou weer.